Hello and welcome to episode 21 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer. As usual, I'm joined by the one and only football writer and broadcaster Dean Jones to discuss all the latest news and gossip from the world of Planet Football. Hiya Dean, the sun is shining, lockdown restrictions are being lifted, you're getting a haircut, lucky for you, and the international break's coming to an end as well, so all things are looking positive.
Everything's looking up, mate. Everything's looking up. From this point on, the world is just going to be a better place, isn't it? I hope, anyway. Gotta be.
Yes, let's hope so, mate. We're getting to the nitty-gritty part of the season now when all the games matter. But there's only one place we can start this week, Dean, and that's the news that broke earlier this week that Manchester City confirming Sergio Aguero will be leaving the club at the end of this season after 10 glorious years at the Etihad. He's been a great servant for City, one of the all-time great Premier League strikers, I think it's fair to say, with his goal-scoring record as well. Did this news come as a shock to you?
Maybe the timing of it, I guess, was the one thing that surprised me. I thought, from what I've been told, he might wait until a bit deeper towards the end of the season before announcing what he was doing. But I don't think it's a great surprise that he's chosen this moment to leave. The way the things have gone for him in the past year, like he's just not relied on as much as he was. He's got injuries. And it's probably time to just look for something fresh. Obviously knows that City need to transition into a new era as well, and that they need to buy a new striker, and that ultimately it's not going to be that helpful as he's lingering around, and he's not going to get that many games going forward either. So he needs to be playing football, and still one of the best goal scorers in the game. He knows they'll have plenty of options, especially as a free agent, get a massive payday somewhere. And I'm sure, more than that as well, he can still be successful. He could go to clubs that are actually going to go and win things. So it's not going to be like he's going down to like a bottom end of the Premier League club or something like that. He's still going to be playing for a top Champions League club wherever he goes.
Yeah, so with that in mind, where will he end up, do you think? Obviously, Barcelona are being touted as the early favourites for his signature. We know they have their financial problems. They are looking at the free agent market, which Aguero obviously falls under as well. I know Joan Laporta, the new Barcelona president, is keen to maybe get him on board, and maybe that would help encourage Lionel Messi to sign a new contract as well, which would be key for everybody at Barcelona. Been a few mischievous reports suggesting Manchester United have made an offer for him as well. And also talk of maybe Chelsea trying to keep Aguero in the Premier League. But I think for me, it's probably between Barcelona and PSG for Aguero's signature this summer. Mauricio Pochettino will know all about his fellow Argentine, and I think getting somebody like Aguero in there would be a big boost to PSG.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that Barcelona and PSG are two obvious openings for him. I know I wrote a few weeks ago that Barca were looking towards him already and just starting to try to find out early whether he was genuinely going to be leaving Man City, and they had quite positive signs. So I imagine that they've already made inroads there. Barca obviously don't have much money, so they are looking for affordable options right now, and free agents is something that they've really got an eye on. And Aguero is somebody they've loved for years, would fit in perfectly. They know he can score in La Liga, so I think Barca's a genuine option. And PSG just seems like a good fit, doesn't it? I mean, again, he would score bundles of goals over in France. Neymar will be there. Mbappe probably won't. So you need somebody to help make up for the goals that aren't going to be there from Kylian Mbappe if he does go. And even if he is still there, you can get Aguero in. You're not having to pay a fee for him, but you are probably going to have to pay quite high wages. Probably something they could deal with. They're definitely the two leading candidates for me. Man United being linked, look, maybe there's some interest there. Maybe it's cheeky. Maybe they're trying to get revenge for what happened with Carlos Tevez. I don't know. But I'd be amazed at a time when Man City are going to be building a statue of Sergio Aguero if Man United are signing him. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think that statue would be coming down pretty quickly if he made the trip across Manchester as well. But just talking of Aguero, where would you rank him among the Premier League legends we've had over the years? Obviously, Man City, you said, are going to build a statue of him alongside David Silva, Vincent Kompany, but he's been key to City's success and where they are right now, and being amongst the top sides in Europe from when he first arrived, when the project really first started at City.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I still count like David Silva for me as like the first like world-class player that was on board at City, and the one that helped them get completely to where they are, but obviously it was Aguero's goals that actually took them to literally to the title, that helped catapult them amongst the elite. So you have to put him right up there. I mean, look, if you play fantasy Premier League, then Aguero really is an all-time great, because if you didn't have him in past seasons, then you were the laughing stock among your mates. But that's not the case this season, because Aguero just not playing enough football. So it's a shame, I guess, that like it's coming to an end at a time when, so, you know, we talk about this all the time, but fans not being in stadiums, like it's a shame we're not getting to see him. But hopefully, you know, on that last day of the season when fans are in there, it can give some appreciation to Sergio Aguero, and maybe even away fans, you know, will get the chance to do that.
Yeah, I think you'd fully deserve any plaudits from the Man City fans, if there is some fans at the end of the stadium, when in all likelihood City will be lifting another Premier League title as well, which would be Aguero's 5th in his time at the club, which is some achievement for the Argentine as well. But obviously we've had Pep Guardiola come out and say that Sergio Aguero is irreplaceable for what he's done at the club. But that's going to be his job right now, Dean, is to find somebody to replace Aguero for next season. Erling Haaland at Dortmund is obviously the number one target, but it's going to be a lot of money to try and lure him away from Dortmund right now. And the competition for his signature is pretty intense, with the likes of Chelsea, Manchester United, Barcelona, Real Madrid also in the hunt for his signature. Probably next on the list after Haaland, you'd probably say Harry Kane would be on City's list to replace Aguero. Where do you think they'll go to try and replace Aguero? And do you think possibly the timing of his departure makes you think that City have got a deal lined up?
I'm not sure they have a deal lined up, but I think they have. If they've just announced this, then they would have known about this in advance, obviously. So they will have definitely been touching base with people. And I don't think it's any coincidence that in the last 3-4 weeks, more rumours have been coming out about forward options that they're looking at. Like for like, I don't know if that exists, or if it needs to exist, because I'm not sure that the way that Aguero became a Man City great, it wasn't quite the same setup that you're getting out Man City. You know, getting a lot of false nine play, and you're seeing De Bruyne, Ferran Torres and Raheem Sterling basically taking turns, and others of playing that role. So they've managed to cope quite well without him. Gabby Jesus, we'll have to see whether he stays. I'm told that, to be honest, if they can't get Haaland, and he is their top target, there's no doubt about that. They want Haaland, and he guarantees you goals, so that makes sense. Then Lukaku is the number one backup plan. That's what I'm told. So we'll see whether that comes through to fruition. I mean, Harry Kane is somebody they really like, and I'm sure they would like to sign. I don't see it happening. I don't see Daniel Levy, one, selling him anyway, and two, definitely don't see him selling him to a club in the Premier League. He's just going to price him out of that, as far as I'm concerned. And City, for all the money they've had throughout the years, they haven't been spending 150, 200 million on a player, and there's no sign of them doing that. So I don't think Harry Kane's realistic. If you want to look at a few other options, then João Felix is somebody to look out for. Not gone brilliantly for him at Atletico Madrid, even though, you know, they're top of the league and stuff. On a personal note, hasn't quite hit the form and consistency and played as much as he would have liked. So look out for João Felix. There's a potential that could come into the thinking.
Yeah, I think there's a few complications in this Haaland deal, not just financially, especially now after coronavirus, the pandemic's hit clubs' finances, even Man City's finances. We all know how rich they are. But we also had interesting comments from his agent, Mino Raiola, this week, suggesting what he thinks of Pep Guardiola and everything else. Do you think that could have any negative impact on City's pursuit of Haaland?
Nah, I'm not buying into it. I just don't believe it. Like, look, football transfers happen. Like, it might mean that Raiola looks for a few extra quid out of it, but he can't stop his player from joining Man City just because of stuff like this. We hear so much talk about in the build-up to big transfers about why they can't happen, but ultimately money talks. And in the end, if Man City are willing to satisfy all the needs of the player and of Borussia Dortmund, then I think the deal could happen. The question is whether they can make all that happen, because what's interesting, I think, is Man City are trying to negotiate deals with Kevin De Bruyne and Raheem Sterling, and the type of money that you're talking there, 300 grand upwards, you're then going to have Haaland looking to get into that bracket as well. And suddenly the wage bill is rising a lot, and that's something that I think has to come into the thinking, and that hasn't really been talked about too much yet. It's all about the fee at the moment, and the fact that look, Dortmund are saying 180 million euros at the moment. As far as I can see, what Dortmund are trying to do is price him out of it, just like they did Jadon Sancho last time around, in hope they can get another year out of him. They might, but I do think City will give it a go.
Probably the concern for Dortmund is if they price him out this summer, he has that release clause that kicks in the following year. So if they don't sell him now for big money, they might have to sell him for a cut price deal maybe when his release clause is active. And I'm sure clubs all around Europe would be willing to do that. But yeah, it's going to be another interesting summer ahead for Borussia Dortmund, trying to keep hold of their best talents really. After Jadon Sancho last year, we had that transfer saga. I think we're going to have the transfer saga of Erling Haaland as well this summer. But I'm sure Man City is going to have a lot of options on that striker list right now. And the big concern for any other fan of Man City is if they were to get Haaland, might as well hand them the Premier League title now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if Haaland joins Man City, then give up and go home, because this guy will just pick up the ball and smash in 30 goals, no matter whether he's playing a false nine or a proper nine. You could even play him at the back and he'll still score 20 goals, I reckon. He's an absolute monster. He's a robot. Like, whatever, describe him any way you like. Like, he's just incredible. He really is. And if anyone that saw that viral clip that went around the other day of him in training for Norway, where someone throws him a ball and he just volleys it in ridiculously from the edge of the box, like, he's just ridiculous. He makes me laugh.
He's a superb talent, and we'd all love to see him in the Premier League, but I think it'd be a big concern if he was to end up at Man City, because they're looking pretty untouchable right now, and if they were to add into it, it's a scary proposition for Premier League defences. Talking of another ex-Premier League striker, you mentioned him earlier there, Dean, Romelu Lukaku. His future's a bit up in the air at Inter Milan right now. We all know of their financial problems with their Chinese owners, Suning, closing down their Chinese Super League team and obviously not getting money into Inter right now, which maybe might force their hand in listening to offers for Lukaku, who's had an outstanding season for the club this season. He's spearheading their bid to win Serie A as well. You said he's probably backup plan for a number of clubs to Erling Haaland. If you don't get Haaland, Lukaku's going to come to the very top of that list for Man City and his former club Chelsea as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I was a bit sceptical about the Lukaku links, so I checked it out the other day to see whether he really would leave Inter, because it doesn't make much sense. He seems to be thriving personally. Inter are top of the league in Serie A, but it really is that this financial situation is so tricky that Inter just can't guarantee anything beyond this season at the moment, because they can't access the funds that they usually would be able to. They're having to think out, like they're basically trying to find short-term investment quickly to make sure this team doesn't fall apart. It's possible Lukaku goes if it does start to fall apart. And one of the things I was mentioned there, like Man City looking at Lukaku as the number one backup plan if they can't get Haaland, it's exactly the same at Chelsea. They want Haaland. If they can't get him, then they want Lukaku. So it might be that those two even end up fighting over Lukaku, even though they didn't absolutely want him because they wanted Haaland. It's going to depend where he goes. But I'd say, like, in an ideal world, Lukaku will stay at Inter because he's doing so well there. He's really found a place that suits him. Serie A suits him. Scores loads of goals. And I think he'd like to stay. But he's played in England, obviously, and he's been around a few clubs. I'd be surprised to see him back at Chelsea. But he was very young when he joined Chelsea initially. Yeah. So, he's not the same player anymore. He hasn't got the same mindset as back then. And maybe he'd like to go and prove people wrong. At Man City, we'll have to see. I mean, I'm not totally sure what type of striker they're going to go for, like we mentioned there. But it seems they like Lukaku. So, let's see if that can happen. But I still think my hunch is still that Inter will try to find a way and find somebody that can help them keep Lukaku happy so they don't have to lose him.
Yeah, he seems like he's quite settled in Italy. But again, it probably come down to finances. If Inter are forced to make some money, Lukaku's going to earn you big money. You're probably looking at 100 million plus for the striker right now in the current transfer market as well. Also, Lautaro Martinez still hasn't signed his new contract yet, Dean, as well, which has been ongoing for several months. Yeah. If he was to become on the market, I'm sure there'd be a lot of takers for him as well in England and probably across the rest of Europe as well. But yeah, like you said, Lukaku, he's had an outstanding season. He's sort of rebuilt his career again over at Inter after a disappointing spell at Manchester United. Do you think he'd be looking to come back to the Premier League, maybe prove a few people wrong?
Yeah, maybe. I don't think that he's that kind of person, though. I don't ever feel that he really does think he needs to prove anyone wrong because he scored so many goals wherever else he's been. That he doesn't really feel that, like, just because of how some people remember him at Man United, that's not really the player he is. And I think he just had a lot of bad luck as well at Man United, and the setup didn't really suit him. Don't forget, really, like, should probably have gone to Chelsea. Like, that was the plan for him there, and it was only that Man United came in at the last minute and signed him. You mentioned Lautaro there, and him and Lukaku have got a fantastic partnership at Inter. There's been a lot of talk about Lautaro leaving. Man City, even one of the teams that have looked at him. Barcelona have looked at Lautaro as well. They're desperate to get him to a new deal, but can't. Achraf Hakimi, who knows if he'll stay at Inter because they still need to fund his deal from Real Madrid. There's a lot going on. I'm not even sure, to be honest, that Lukaku's deal from Man United to Inter is paid for. So Man United might even feel the impact of this if this drags on. So there's lots to go on, and I think we'll be hearing a lot more about the Lukaku situation.
There could be a potential fire sale at Inter if those finances aren't resolved pretty quickly as well. But like you said, I think this summer could be dominated by Erling Haaland and ROMELU Lukaku, and where these two powerhouse strikers might end up. And hopefully for all us, it will be for the Premier League for these two strikers, because if they're coming to the Premier League, there's guaranteed goals, and whoever gets them are going to be very lucky, I think, as well. One player potentially leaving the Premier League this summer is Georginio Wijnaldum at Liverpool. This saga has been dragging on for several months now, Dean. We all know Wijnaldum's out of contract this summer, yet to sign a new deal. I think Liverpool have made an offer from which has been rejected. Widespread talk of Barcelona even agreeing a pre-contract with the Netherlands international as well. I think they're offering him a 3-year deal for him to make the move to the new camp. What's your take on this one? Do you think he'll end up leaving Liverpool, or do you still think there's a possibility he could sign a new deal at Anfield?
It's looking unlikely, and I mean, this is ridiculous, to be honest, because if Jurgen Klopp wants the player, which he does, then Liverpool should be backing him. Like, the guy's, he's got to won the Champions League, he's won the Premier League, he's done his best to get by this season when they didn't really give him the backing they should have at the start of the season, when he told them what he needed and didn't get it. Then they're scrambling around trying to sign a centre-back in January when they got desperate. And Klopp, like, Wijnaldum's played a lot this season, and he's been one of the reasons they haven't completely collapsed. So the idea that they're only willing to give him 1 year, I just don't really buy into it. I think sometimes you've got to look deeper than, like, value of a deal, and you've got to look at, like, keeping this team together and make sure they're on track to bounce back next season. And I think that you have to put more faith in Jurgen Klopp when it comes to contracts and signings. It doesn't seem that he's getting the say in either of those areas that he should be getting, to me. I mean, let's see what he gets as well in the transfer window, because, you know, there's Kabak and Konaté that clearly he wants. Kabak, probably an easier deal to do, but Konaté's, you know, so if they could get both of those players, which I think Klopp wants, then you're in a great situation once Van Dijk comes in, because you've got that solidity again and you've learnt your lessons from the year before. But I bet they don't do it because they don't seem to give him exactly what he wants, and they'll probably look for a more valuable option to the club or the company or the project or whatever you want to call it. It must be really frustrating for Klopp. As Liverpool fans, they'll hope it's not too frustrating and he gets the ump and ends up walking away from all of this. I don't know how you see it, but I just think that a player like Wijnaldum, just keep him. Because if Barcelona want to give him a 3-year deal, he's obviously doing something right.
Oh, yeah. I think he's an underrated player, Wijnaldum. He's not spectacular, but he does a job. And like you said, Dean, he's probably been among Liverpool's best performers this season. He's been fit for one. He's played a lot of the games. He's been captain in recent weeks when Jordan Henderson's been out injured as well. So that obviously shows the faith that Jurgen Klopp's got in him. So he's a key man in his squad. You think it'd be a no-brainer just to give him what he wants. I know Wijnaldum wants to be a bit closer to the other top earners at Liverpool, the likes of Van Dijk and Salah, who are on £150,000 a week plus. I think Wijnaldum's still on 90 grand a week, which good money, but he's probably thinking, look, I've done enough for this club to be up there among that. And you'd be thinking, rather than losing him on a free transfer, tie him down to a new long-term contract, keep everybody happy. The player's obviously happy to stay if the deal is right as well. And I think he's never let Liverpool down whenever he's played. I think he's a good, solid player. And to lose him on a free transfer would be a major blow for Klopp. and his plans to bounce back next season as well. But if he were to leave, Dean, few names have been mentioned as potential replacements, but again, you're going to have to pay for these boys as well. So it doesn't make sense either to be forking out big money on a replacement. Any names you've heard as potential replacements?
No, well, that's exactly it. I was speaking to this about someone the other day, and I was talking about like what are they looking at, and they were starting to explain the kind of traits they'd be looking for in a midfielder, and I'm like, well, what do they think they're going to get there for under $100,000 a week and without any fee? Like, doesn't it really exist? So you're going to end up spending. Okay, you might get somebody that's a few years younger, but I don't see that Liverpool can sign someone that's going to can walk straight into the team, be in the rhythm of the team, have the understanding of all the players around them. I don't know. It just doesn't add up to me. So I don't really know in terms of concrete plans that they've got in that area. Yeah, I've heard a couple of names mentioned, but at this stage, it's not really worth even touting because I think it's too early from what I've heard. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. I think you just give Wijnaldum the 3 years.
Yeah, I think that would be the ideal scenario for everybody connected to Liverpool, apart from maybe the power brokers who sign the checks these days. That seems to be the holding everything up in this one, because Jurgen Klopp wants to keep him. Wijnaldum wants to stay as well, but it seems he hasn't had the right offer on the table as yet. But things can still change. Maybe they might come to their senses and offer him the deal that he wants, and that will keep him at Anfield for foreseeable future.
Yeah, Sander Berge, by the way, is one name that I've written about. Sander Berge at Sheffield United, who obviously, they'll probably be looking to sell him if they go down. But he's just had a long injury layoff, and he's not going to be cheap. So, like, just to give an example there, I was trying to think of someone that I could give as a decent example, someone they might pursue. And I think Sander Berge probably comes into that bracket. But I think Sheffield United paid 20 million for him. He's a good young player, no doubt about that. But he's just had a serious surgery. Hasn't been playing, has been going into a team where there's no real, he has not been amongst them. So it's still a gamble, isn't it?
A massive gamble, as you said. The way Liverpool play, intense pressing as well. He's had a really bad hamstring injury as well. So you'd be looking to see if he's fully recovered before you would be paying big money on him. But I think with regards to Sander Berge, maybe it's a familiar route Liverpool are going down here of trying to snap up some of the best players from clubs that get relegated. They signed Wijnaldum from Newcastle when they got relegated, signed Andy Robertson from Hull when they got relegated. So maybe they're looking at Sander Berge as well. But for me,
strange way to build a title team, isn't it? Just looking at relegation teams. But I guess it worked last time.
It worked last time, but I think if Wijnaldum's there settled, you try and keep him happy and give him the deal. And seems like he's a popular member of the squad as well. So we'll have to wait and see what the final outcome is on Wijnaldum's contract saga at Anfield. Moving on to another subject that we've discussed a lot on this podcast, Dean, is Celtic manager's job. It just keeps flipping and flopping. This one. It's still going. Still seems like no clear-eyed plan or idea what Celtic are going to do right here. A lot of talk last week. Roy Keane was backed into heavy favourite for the job amid reports that he'd held talks with the Celtic hierarchy. Also, after Nicky Butt left Manchester United, there was rumours that Nicky Butt was going to join Keane at Celtic as his assistant, which had a lot of fans excited as well. But then over the weekend, Eddie Howe came back into favouritism for the job, and he's been long-term linked with this role at Parkhead following his departure from Bournemouth last year. Do you have any more insight into what's happening at Celtic? Or
well, I'm trying to stay on top of it and see what people are thinking and how it's changing. And the last update I got at the weekend was basically that ideally the club want to stay like traditional with this. So that's why the Keane link for me can't be completely dismissed, because I think they do like the idea of having a Celtic figurehead or somebody that's relatable in that sense. And Eddie Howe hasn't got that, but Eddie Howe has got better coaching credentials. But I don't know, like it seems to me like it's going to be an old-fashioned appointment from what I'm told. Like the people that are making this decision are looking at traditional values rather than new age coaching methods. That's what I'm told. So when the type of names that crop up, I'm trying to weigh up how serious they are, basically based on whether they've got any links to Celtic in the past or not. That's kind of where I'm at. And I'm still not dismissing John Kennedy from getting the job, to be honest. I mean, he didn't lose against Rangers the other day, so that's helped him. I think if he'd got battered in there, then you could have dismissed it. But he didn't, and he's still in there. So I still think he'll be involved in some way in all of this. I don't know if you're hearing that it's progressed much, but I don't think that that Roy Keane can be totally dismissed out of hand, because I think there is a temptation to go down that route.
Oh yeah, 100%. Big temptation for that one. I think it's heart ruling head right now, maybe for some of the Celtic decision makers, thinking of Roy Keane, who obviously had a short spell at Celtic at the back end of his career. Obviously, he's got his Irish roots as well, which would make him popular among the Celtic fans. And I think for box office reasons, Roy Keane against Steven Gerrard would put Celtic and Rangers back on the map across world football, probably. So for those reasons, it would be a big draw for Celtic. But he's been out of management for quite a while now. We would all miss him on Sky as well if he was to end up going back in the managerial dugout as well. He's been good value with some of his quips on there as well. But I think the big concern for Celtic is they don't really seem to know what they're doing right now. Do they go for the traditional route, or do they go down the new route of a forward-thinking young coach who obviously Enzo Maresca at Man City was mentioned. He's done a great job with the under-23s there, and all the talk seems to be that Manchester City's operations manager Fergal Harkin will be arriving at Celtic in a role there as well, which maybe adds to a bit that maybe Maresca could be on the list as well. But I don't know, it's a strange one. It's a big decision, whatever Celtic do, because they've fallen so far behind Rangers in such a short space of time.
Yeah, totally. And I think, the financial side of this as well has to be taken into account. And, I think Benitez was mentioned even at one point, and it's like, well, they can't afford to get Rafa Benitez, so that can be dismissed. So anyone on that level can't be taken into account. So, look, I would have big concerns about Roy Keane's record as a manager. I would have concerns about how many members of the squad he might fall out with and how many you've got to replace. But yeah, as you say, at least it'll be box office and get you headlines. I'm not sure how much it would help you catch Rangers next season, though, is the problem.
No, it'd be interesting on Touchline and the Old Firm games. Gerrard against Keane, be like the old Liverpool Man United days again. But yeah, still a lot to happen before we see Roy Keane possibly in that job at Celtic. Right, that's us for another week here on Touchline Talk. We'll be back next week for more news and gossip and more insight. Thank you.